Hello, I'm Stephen Coates and welcome to my studio here in Sheffield. As many of you know, I have posted quite a few videos on YouTube and most of these are quite long with lots of information about the whole painting process. Most people want to sit down and create a whole painting but often forget that practicing and doodling can have a dramatic effect on skill level. So I wanted to show you a few exciting exercises you can do with watercolour paint that only take a few minutes. So I hope you will enjoy having a go at some of my quick-fire doodling sessions. Today I want to show you just a small vignette landscape study. This is a very simple doodle that you can do just to help practice doing your skies and doing a little bit of wet into wet with the green in the landscape. So I'm going to do just a very subdued sort of sky. I'm not going to use any blue. I've just drawn this sort of curved line. This is the horizon for the landscape. I'll just show you the palette. I've just got some of this plum mix, which is ultramarine in light red. I've got a little bit of burnt umber on there, a little bit of burnt sienna, and I've mixed this green with lemon yellow, touch of raw sienna and some ultramarine. It's not a bright green, it's quite a subdued green because it is a subdued day. So I don't want the greens to be too garish. So clear water, using the mini hake now to just create this sky. So I only need to come down to just below that curving line there. I'm not too, again, with the vignette idea, I'm not too worried about where the sky ends. So I'm just flicking water all the way across there. And I'm only going to just use one colour in this sky. I'm going to pick up a small amount of this plum mix and we'll flick that across this lower area of the sky to get a sort of a lightish covering of the paint down there. And then I'm just going to plunge the brush into some slightly thicker stuff and sort of paddle the brush across to make it look like there's a few bigger, stormier clouds higher up. And like I said, I'm not too worried about where the sky ends. It should fade into the water that I've put on there. So that's an impression of a rather subdued sky, moody. Let's actually get a tiny bit more and just have a slightly stronger cloud just here, a little bit higher up. And the idea now is just to leave that for a few minutes to settle off. So I've not played with that for more than, 30 seconds or a minute, just got the colour in, and I'm just going to leave that now to dry naturally. Okay, so that's the first step completed. That's dry. You can see that's softened off and you can see how the ultramarine and the light red have separated and we've got that lovely moody sky. So all I'm going to do now is just create just a distant mountain. So this is some of that plum mix with quite a lot of water in the brush. I'm just going to use the mini hake again now. Quite literally going to raise that brush up there, create a little bit of a mountain peak and down again. There, it took me no more than 2 seconds to paint that distant mountain. Again, that now needs drying off. Right, that's dry. I don't need to worry about this overlap. The paint I'm going to put on here now will cover that. But I want to get this to just fade at the bottom here because it's a vignette, just the same as the sky has done. So I'm actually just going to use the mini hake again. I'm just going to put some water down here. Oh, that's a bit grubby. Let's just get the brush into some cleaner water. There we go. So if I just wet that area down below, so it's dry here, but it's just wet down below. That should just help me fade the paint. So I'm just going to use my number 8 brush now and go into this green. I'm going to start by pulling that brush all the way down there. Lots of water and keep going back for some paint. Now I don't want this paint, I don't want it to be as bright as this paint, because that's too bright really for the conditions of the sky. So I'm just putting an underbase of this green on, and as you can see that's fading really nicely underneath into that water that I've put on. Now I'm going to get a little bit of burnt sienna. And we'll flick that in, and immediately that starts to change the colour of that green, makes it more subdued. So a little bit of the burnt sienna and a little bit of burnt umber as well. And these colours variegate the colour of the meadow, and then this is a little bit of plum as well. Now what I'm interested in doing is creating a little row of trees now along this horizon. So I'm going to use my foliator brush. Bear in mind this is still wet here. I've got put plenty of water in there. So I'm going to get the foliator, fill it up with the green paint, and I'm going to just paint the impression of some trees. Again, this is that lovely little sort of stabbing motion. Little vertical drops of the brush. Just come down so far, I'll have that sort of diminishing to nothing there. And then I'm just going to pick up some of the plum colour that I had. And we'll put a bit of that in. See, again, all we can see now of the green is the highlights, because this secondary colour that's going in now is now covering up a lot of that green. While I'm doing this, this is settling a little bit now. It's not quite as wet, but it's still damp, and it's no good trying to do what I'm going to do now if it's fully dried. So you have to paint quickly, and that's the beauty of this sort of study. Just a touch more of this strong plum just in the lower area of those trees. Down there. There we go, that's lovely. So I've just brought that into contact with the top of that meadow, and I'm going to go back to my number 8 now. Now I'm going to deliberately bring that row of trees into contact with the top of that meadow and pull it down and sweep it down like that, so it almost looks like a shadow coming away from the underside of the trees. And again, that's taken out the real sharpness of the green. It's turned it into a much more subdued colour. So basically, that'll do for that part of the painting. But there's one more thing I want to show you. I'm going to use a little kebab stick. This is the type of thing that you get in either in a kebab, or you might get it pinning a burrito together or something in a restaurant. Little flat end there and a sharp end there. It's a little wooden stick. Lots of artists use different implements for this effect, but basically that paint, as it starts to dry now, I can put that stick down and just press down quite hard and give a little jerky scratch with the stick, and it just takes a little weight of the paint away, and they look like little silver birch tree trunks. Some are doubles, some are just singles, and then I can use the other end, the sharp end, to just flick a few sharp branches here and there in the trees. Oh, and I put my hand in the paint there, look, and I've got some paint there. Never mind. In fact, tell you what, just to show that I am just the same as anybody else and make mistakes, let's put another little tree there just on the other side of that bit of grass. So what we've actually ended up with there is a bit of a gap between these two trees, and we'll just literally use the number 8 again there just to finish that off at the bottom like that. There we go, that mistake wasn't too bad then in the end. So that's it. I could probably put a couple of birds in the sky here, And as you can see, I've used various watercolour techniques, these lovely sweeping wet into wet colours for the foreground meadow, the little scratching for the trees, a foliator brush for the foliage, this lovely moody sky. And all of that is done in just, what, 5 or 10 minutes, that's all. A fabulous little doodle that you can do to practice your landscapes. Let me just use a rigger, finish this off with a couple of birds just in this space here, in between the trees. So I hope you'll have fun trying a doodle like this, and I hope to see you again on another video.